In a neighborhood filled with spotless driveways and carefully maintained appearances, tension quietly lingered behind every smile. Parked beneath the warm morning sunlight sat a bright yellow Lamborghini, shining like a symbol of ambition and freedom. Its owner, a quiet and disciplined man, looked at the car with pride. To him, it represented years of sacrifice, hard work, and finally achieving a peaceful life. But not everyone in the neighborhood admired what the car stood for. Behind the curtains of a nearby home, someone watched closely, eyes narrowed with irritation and judgment. This was more than a disagreement about a vehicle. It was a story about control, resentment, and what happens when someone decides to cross a line they should have never touched. The calm atmosphere didn't last long. Karen, already convinced she had been wrong somehow, stormed across the street toward a veteran's driveway. Her footsteps were quick and angry as she immediately began shouting complaints about the Lamborghini. According to her, the car violated neighborhood standards, even though it was parked perfectly legally on private property. The veteran stayed calm. His voice remained steady as he tried to explain that the car was legally parked and causing no problems to anyone. But the more composed he remained, the angrier Karen became. Her voice grew louder with every sentence, her frustration feeding itself as she ignored every reasonable explanation he gave. Instead of calming down, Karen's rage spiraled completely out of control. The veteran's refusal to argue only seemed to make her even more furious. Then, in one sudden and shocking moment, she grabbed a heavy garden gnome sitting beside the driveway. Her expression twisted with anger as she lifted it high and slammed it into the Lamborghini. Glass exploded across the driveway. She struck the windows again and again, then smashed the side panels with wild, reckless force. The attack turned into a full destructive frenzy as dents, scratches, and shattered pieces scattered everywhere. At first, the veteran simply stared in disbelief. Then his expression hardened into something cold and unreadable. He didn't touch her. He didn't yell back. Instead, he calmly pulled out his phone and began recording everything. Every strike, every scream, every piece of damage she caused the expensive car. The camera captured deep gouges across the paint, broken windows, and crushed body panels while Karen continued her rampage, completely blind to the seriousness of what she was doing and unaware of the man she had just pushed too far. Finally, when there was almost nothing left for her to hit, Karen stopped. The driveway fell silent except for the sound of her heavy breathing. The destruction was complete, and the weight of what had just happened hung heavily in the air. Moments later, the quiet suburban street was flooded with flashing red and blue lights as police cars pulled into the neighborhood. The aftermath had officially begun. Even after destroying the Lamborghini, Karen still carried herself with confidence, convinced she had done nothing wrong. She spoke to the officers with smug certainty, loudly explaining her version of events as if she expected praise instead of consequences. The veteran, however, remained completely calm. Without raising his voice or showing any emotion, he simply handed over his phone. The officers watched the footage carefully, and the mood immediately changed. The video captured everything in brutal detail. Karen screaming, smashing windows, crushing panels, and attacking the car without restraint. It was undeniable evidence, silent but devastating. As one detective replayed the footage, something caught his attention. Maybe it was the veteran's name. Maybe it was the tattoo visible on his arm. Whatever it was, the detective's expression subtly shifted. The atmosphere around the scene changed almost instantly as recognition spread among the officers. Quiet glances were exchanged. Suddenly, they understood exactly who they were dealing with. Fragments of the veteran's past slowly came into focus. He wasn't just some random homeowner protecting his property. He was a highly decorated former military operative, a man whose name carried weight in certain circles. Stories of his service, discipline, and strategic effectiveness had earned him both respect and fear long before this neighborhood incident ever happened. His reputation alone was enough to make people think twice before crossing him. And now Karen was realizing, far too late, whose life she had just exploded into. The confidence drained from her face almost immediately as officers placed her in handcuffs. The reality of felony vandalism charges hit hard, replacing her earlier arrogance with visible panic. Meanwhile, the story spread rapidly. Local news outlets picked it up first, followed by social media pages that began uncovering details about the veteran's military background. Headlines and online posts painted the full picture, revealing that the quiet man she attacked was someone with an intimidating history and powerful connections. Karen's expression shifted from anger to pure fear as the truth sank in. She hadn't simply damaged a car belonging to an ordinary neighbor. She had publicly attacked a man known for precision, patience, and relentless follow-through. Not long after the arrest, the veteran was seen making a brief phone call beside the wrecked Lamborghini. He spoke calmly, almost casually, but the look on his face suggested the situation was far from over. The criminal charges were only the beginning. Legal consequences, financial damages, and public humiliation were now waiting for Karen, and there was no easy escape from any of it. As reporters continued covering the story, the veteran stood silently beside the destroyed supercar. Surprisingly, he didn't appear devastated. Instead, there was a faint, knowing smirk on his face, as though he understood something Karen still didn't. Cars would be repaired or replaced. Reputations, freedom, and peace of mind were much harder to recover once destroyed. The final image left behind was unforgettable. Karen sat defeated and overwhelmed, facing public backlash and the reality of her actions, while the veteran simply turned and walked away from the damaged Lamborghini, without looking back. The message was clear. Some people mistake patience for weakness until the consequences finally arrive. Justice, in its own way, had been served.